Good afternoon, Tamela, and thank you so much for joining us today. And I know you are a realtor that expands your services not only to South Florida, but anyone that is also relocated. And today we're going to just talk about the things that you've seen when dealing with condos and selling a home or buying a condo, the challenge that you may face when you think of insurance. So tell me about your recent situation or any new upcoming situations that you're noticing that wasn't there before.
Absolutely, Carrie. And it's such a pleasure to be here with you. And I love that we're sharing this information. And what I recently had, I had a buyer who purchased a condo. And after all my years being in this business, I hadn't really been familiar with a 4-point inspection of a condo. So she reached out and she'd already closed on her property because she purchased it cash, but she was in the process of covering her condo with insurance. And she reached out because she had a question about a 4-point inspection and about the insurance prices for her condo in a community here in Florida. Could you share a little bit about what it is to insure a condo? Because I had always heard as a real estate agent, it was from the walls in, and that was where our insurance was covered. Or I heard things like it might be like a renter's policy. So could you expand on that with all of your years experience as well and what's happening recently?
Right. Well, I think what's happening recently is the years of how old the buildings are is catching up to us. And we want to know, for example, what kind of electrical panel is inside that condo. We want to know the roof, when the roof was last updated. And if it's not been updated recently, how much years is remaining on that roof, which should be 5 years or more. We're also looking at, the hot water heater, how old it is. Because in a condo, if you're on the first floor or the 5th or 7th floor, if that hot water heater breaks, then it could damage the units below. And you want to make sure that not only the hot water heater is in good standing, years old, but more importantly, that you do have an active policy that will kind of help you recoup those damages should your neighbors decide to start looking for a way to cover their water damage that's coming through their ceiling. So that's one of the reasons why we're now asking for a 4-point, but it's only for older buildings. Once the buildings get to 30, 40, 50 years, most companies are starting to pick up that trend that say, okay, we no longer just want the wind mitigation inspection report, which is a separate inspection, and the wind mitigation inspection report gives you a discount based on how that roof is anchored down to the actual structure and when the roof was replaced, and also if you qualify for shutters. So that form gives you discount, but now we're asking for a 4-point inspection, and that's in regards to qualification. Does this unit even qualify to be insured? And that's what the 4-point inspection is. So, once you start in the process of putting an order in, an offer in on a condo, it's a good step to now start asking for these reports to lighten your client's burden. Because when they start to shop for insurance, these are documents that they're going to need. And as a realtor, you can easily just provide them with it and say, hey, you need to speak to an insurance professional, and they can further explain these items to you. But at least I did my due diligence and I gave you the documents you need, so perhaps you won't need to go and purchase one. Another thing a lot of people should know is that the 4-point inspection for most insurance companies, they expire, and they pretty much expire year to year. So if you purchase one this year, within 12 to 16 months, some companies want to see a new 4-point inspection, because a 4-point inspection is indicating that this is a good home, but it's an older home. And as the years go on, year after year, things are going more. So we need updated documentation, which is very valid when you're thinking about shopping your insurance year after year. So that is short but sweet and long, the reason why we're now starting to ask for 4-point. It's really to negate these water damages. So I know insurance is in case things happen, but we're trying to get to a new point where we're trying to make sure that we do preventative claims. If you know how old a hot water heater, or maybe installing a water sensor that will lessen your chances. If you know your electrical panel needs to be switched out, The realtor or the seller can advise you the best way to get it switched out. Usually, you go to a local Home Depot store, and it's between $700 to $1,400 if you're going to use a permit to switch out the electrical panel. Another thing on the 4-point, we want to see the type of piping that's inside the home. So under the kitchen sink, what year was, what kind of piping is it? Usually polybutane pipe is a pain point for realtors, and I know you can. But as an insurance agent for over a decade, I usually don't dissuade consumers from purchasing a home. Check the scope of the work and see if it's something that is able to salvage the deal. It could be just a quick run to Home Depot and get a plumber to switch out those items and get a new revised 4-point to move forward. So there's always a solution for the issue, but the 4-point definitely tells us what we can expect in the future with this unit. So how did your customer move along with her insurance policy?
Well, she hasn't gotten through the policy yet, and it just came up, and I thought that would be a great topic since it's something new for myself as well. After, as you said, you've been in the business for over a decade. I've certainly been in the business for almost 20 years at this point, and it was new to me. And I thought, well, what a great topic for people that are out there that don't know about this 4-point. And also, it helps real estate agents, because when we're out guiding a buyer and we're walking them through a property, it's one little thing that we could look up, or we can notice, or we can help the buyer to notice. Granted, I'm not a home inspector. I'm obviously not an insurance, so that's why we refer to the professionals in the business. However, if it's one quick thing like opening a door and noticing the hot water heater, and maybe noticing the year of the hot water heater, just as you noted, or noticing the electric panel, and maybe is it one of the companies that are highlighted as being a potential issue, or what year was the building built, and has that electric box been replaced? So it brought up a subject for me that I thought, wow, we could really cover this for not only myself, but we could also cover it for everyone that's out there, buyers, sellers. Sellers could have this handled prior to, especially if a seller is in a situation like you said, they're long distance, they live in Canada as an example, and they have not seen their property, their condo, in maybe 2-3 years, especially with COVID. Some of our borders were closed down. Some of our people that are international have not been able to travel. And with this really coming into play over the last couple of years, it became not only a subject with that particular client, but I thought, wow, Kerry could really cover this and help out an awful lot of people that don't have any idea. So thank you.
That's right. I think one of the ways to also, discover these issues in the beginning is when that consumer is ready to do an inspection on a property, versus just doing the basic inspection that says, hey, I want to see what's wrong with this property. Include that WINMIT and 4-point inspection if the condo association does not have the WINMIT. My think is, well, this condo has shutters. However, the wind mitigation from the condo association might not be sufficient enough for your particular unit. So unless your paperwork says unit 201, for example, and instead of, a condo association WINMIT, it's just going to say the property address, not the specific unit. Sometimes condo owners lose out on such a major discount of getting that shutter discount. So I always tell a realtor, hey, if your buyer is going to purchase a home, and they're going to do the inspections, because we know people are buying properties sight unseen, but if they're buying it and they're doing an inspection, whether it's cash or FHA or conventional, at that time, do your WINMIT and 4-point. It also gives the inspector a little bit more work to do, but it's a great way versus, going down the road and say, you know what, we're really buying this property now. I got the inspection report. And then, well, you're missing a few other reports. And sometimes clients will send me the inspection report, and I have to tell them, so sorry, but you're missing that wind mitigation and 4-point. I always just encourage realtors, get it done when they're doing the inspection on the home so you can see the full scope of everything, especially here in South Florida. We're very limited to the amount of carriers that will write. And as you know, we have hurricane season pretty much half of the year. We've already had a few named storms. So it's just really, really important for us to make sure that your buyers are covering the walls in. And the walls in means the drywall, and as you can see, the electricals at some point, because you're touching that panel is yours. And the hot water heater is super, super important. As a condo owner, sometimes the roof, there's not much you can do about it because it has to be covered by the entire, community. But the interior things that you see inside your unit, you can replace or update and fix. So it's not as if the deal is gone. We just want to see how likely it is that you might have a water damage or an electrical burnout in your home, especially if you purchase a unit and it says SPE panel or Sylvania panels. There are some panels that are just not welcomed anymore because it is considered a fire hazard or a detriment to your own health. So those are the reasons why we ask for a 4 point. So I hope that most of your clients are more prepared when they think about purchasing a condo. And we will just call these condos oldie but goodies because I know, I live in an older home. So not everyone is going to buy the 2021. And here in South Florida, there are very much a lot of mature condos out here that is well kept up. But just we're not, and that the HOA is not going to provide. It has to be coming from the customer and in the customer's name and the customer's unit number.
Absolutely. And one of the things too, I think is important to keep in mind, especially with what you're saying about these electric boxes. I mean, we have condos that are on the ocean or in the intercoastal, and the farther east that we typically get, the older, for the most part, that the condo complexes are. So if they're closer to the ocean or they're closer to the intercoastal, many of those are older communities. And it very well could be that a family has owned that condo for 30, 40 years. They've never had anything like that checked. It could be an original owner, it could be passed through the family, the next part of the family, and now all of a sudden, and especially as a listing agent, I think it's so important as a listing agent that we go into a property and we gather that information, because if a family's inherited the property, they may not know, they may not be familiar. So I think it's even more important that we continue as agents to stay extremely educated. It's a constantly changing business. It's one of the reasons I came into it, is all of the changes and all of the learning. There's nothing that stays the same. And it's so important that we use and work with professionals in the business, such as yourself, that can keep us educated constantly so that we can then educate our clients. So I agree with the things that you're saying. It's so important to have the home inspection. It's important. We make up a large team in real estate. It's not just the agent. It's the people that the agent is associating the buyer or the seller with. And we always give those options of 3. However, it's important for a buyer or seller to know that the agent they're working with has contact with those professionals that are established in the business and are there to really take care of them. And I think that's one of the things that you also do. Every time that I send you someone or I ask you a question, you're there to answer it for me. And I really appreciate that.
Right.
Thank you.
Now, after so many years in the business, I realized the most important thing to do is to be of service, to educate. So whether we might not, I always say we might not have the lowest price, but you as a consumer or, a realtor, I am going to tell you exactly what the customer needs in order to secure a policy, whether it's with me or someone else, so that they don't go to the next person and they get a policy and then these trailing documents are missing. So just getting them prepared for all the expectations so they're not, at a disadvantage or upset. We want our customers to have a very good buying process. And we always want to make sure that they know there is a solution. Even though it sounds convoluted or negative or whatever the situation is, you, Tamela, will make it right and make sure that a customer has a happy, happy closing and continue to refer you more organic businesses. That's what we're in the business of, to be of service, but organic. I thank you so much for being here today. And if anyone can find you, please tell us, what is the name of your company and the best way to reach out to you?
Well, they can always reach me, and we'll keep the information below, but they can always reach me and you can find me all over the internet. You can find my YouTube by going to Tamela Talks Real Estate is one way, and we'll be putting these up on the YouTube as well. Or you can locate me on social media. It's under Tamela Staubs. And the company that I'm with we'll actually leave all that information below because that makes it so much easier for people to actually gain the information. So
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tamela, and we'll speak again next week.
thank you.